music has an incredible capacity to connect us, amplify voices that aren't always heard, and open doors to a more inclusive tomorrow. That's why we support Canadian music with a focus through the TD Ready commitment on experiences that bring people together and break down barriers even when we're apart.
Happy Saturday and welcome to our final Jazz Lab of our Jazz Lab series presented by TD Bank Group. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded territory and ancestral homeland of the Mi'kmaq people. We acknowledge the treaties of peace and friendship, and that we all need to take meaningful steps in reconciliation and the continued efforts of a strong nation-to-nation relationship. We recognize that we need to respect Indigenous sovereignty and rights to this land that we occupy. We would like to acknowledge the support of the Government of Canada, the Province of Nova Scotia, and of course the Municipality of Halifax. I would also like to extend a very special thanks to our title sponsor, TD. We are also so very grateful to the support of our many festival partners, Advocate Printing and Publishing, Stingray Radio, CTV, and Insight Optometry. And finally, a big thanks to Lighthouse and the entire team at Rockbound Productions for the delivery of all of our virtual performances this summer. So here we are in our final lab, Discovering Your Sound with Kwento, and I'm going to introduce her, originally from the Preston Township. I'm low-key biased here, but very excited to have you here. In Nova Scotia, Kwento is accredited as a gifted singer, songwriter, and actress by her peers and critics alike. After graduating from Nova Scotia Community College with a diploma in music arts, she began to pursue a career in the arts full-time, and her talents and musical exploits have afforded her opportunities across Canada and the USA, as well as Europe, and as notable awards and nominations. For her, her artistic practices have been a means of healing and self-discovery. Through embracing her roots, she has found a deeper sense of her truth as an individual, and hopes her presence tells a story that validates and offers comfort and healing to the silence. Welcome, Kwento.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thank you for being here.
Of course.
It's so interesting, like, being with you in this capacity because I've, like, known you my whole life. So it's interesting to kind of see people go from just someone you know to an artist, a professional, and seeing you travel and listening to your music. It's been very interesting. I feel like I've gotten to know you all over again. So it's really nice to have you here.
It's so nice to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk.
Chat, hang out.
Yeah, it's good, you know. I think we were just talking, having some banter before this session and just talking about how people haven't really gotten together in a long time. And, you know, the last few times I'd seen you was over like Zoom calls and things like that. So it's nice to be in person and to chat and to learn more of your story creatively and talking about discovering your sound. So getting right into it, if you could describe your experience with discovering your sound, kind of starting with like, what did you do, I guess?
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to this topic, I know this is like a master class, but I don't feel like a master at it. I feel like I'm still like developing and discovering who I am as an artist. But I feel like when it comes to discovering your sound, I think we underestimate ourselves and don't realize that we have a sound. Like, you have one. Like, if you're making sound, you have a sound, right? It's just a matter of like honing in on what that is. And I feel like the biggest, easiest way to do that is to let your audience tell you.
Okay, so I like how you said we already have a sound. You know, kind of speaking to how we kind of tend to overthink to try and figure out, oh, what that is, but you already have it. And so really being aware of what is coming out and understanding that that is your own.
Yeah, that's your sound. Like, you have one. And I feel like if you just perform, people watching will offer you that. Like, listen to the feedback. People will say, oh my God, you remind me so much of like this person or this artist. If you don't know who it is, look them up. And say, okay, what about me is like them? You know? I would say that's sort of how I started to define what I sound like, because people would give me feedback. Yeah.
What has been some of the most like constructive feedback you received that kind of help you navigate that?
Funny enough, a lot of people tell me I sound like Jill Scott, right? And it's not funny, but interestingly enough, like, I didn't really listen to Jill Scott. Like, she wasn't really one of my like inspirations getting into singing, but then she became one. Once people started saying, you sound like Jill Scott, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should listen more to her. And I did, and fell in love, like. Yeah, and then I embraced the elements of me that were similar to her, you know, and I was able to hone in on those. Also, people would even give feedback like constructive criticism, like, okay, when you're singing this way, you held back, and I wanted you to give more of that, or you do this little thing with your voice and you don't let it ring out, or you kind of, you know, little things like that, or my voice would do this little scratchy thing, and someone actually said to me, I love when your voice does that little thing. And it was something that I felt like, you know, my voice is a little dry, I need to clear it up.
Wasn't professional or something, right?
Yeah, and then someone told me they liked it, and I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. So then I sat and worked on trying to create that sound, because it was kind of an accidental thing.
Right, so you had to pay attention to what your voice was doing, what your body was doing.
Yeah, but all of this came from just listening to what people said, right?
So would you say that that helped you build confidence in your voice and in performing, because you had seen these elements in other people already? So that sense of isolation, or am I the only person that sounds like this, kind of almost goes out of the window once you find those similarities in people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we sometimes get really hung up on being so unique and original, and we don't just accept the fact that we are. Like, of course I'm gonna mimic. Of course I'm gonna do something that I heard before, you know?
Well, that's how you learn,
it's how
right?
you speak, like it's how you do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So like we get so hung up on trying to be so like different, but we are different because we're a combination of all the things that come together to make us. Yeah, and no two people will have the same combination.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that. That's beautiful. So when you're talking about people were saying you sounded like Jill Scott, were there any other artists that, you know, people said you sounded like, and what were those elements you were able to take away from those artists to kind of help you figure out, you said finding yourself in them. So what were some of those things?
So like some other artists would be like India Arie, Erykah Badu, and I feel like sometimes it's vibe as well, so not necessarily sound. So sometimes your sound can be influenced by just like your vibe and the things you choose to sing about or speak about or the energy you bring, right? So I feel like that's a thing that I wanted to embody. Sorry, what was the second half of your question?
Just like, what were those things that you noticed that were similar between you and those artists that you felt like you could take away?
Yeah, I would say content.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people compared me, or still do, compare me to certain artists because of the content that I like to offer.
Okay. So if we're talking about building your own like vocal vocabulary,
Right.
what was that process like for you?
Okay, so back when I was in college, there was this thing that we did as a part of our recital called a transcription. So what we had to do was like to transcribe would be to like listen to something and then transcribe it to paper, like to notate it. But what we do is we'd get like a scat piece or like a section of music where an artist was improvising in our instruments. So mine was vocal, other people had like others. And what we had to do is listen to them and then mimic it and try and mimic it to a T, right? And then transcribe it. And I found that helped me a lot because it built my vocabulary. So for example, if I'm listening to Ella Fitzgerald and I'm listening to her little, I don't want to say little scat because like, but if I'm listening to like the little intricate things that she's doing within that and I'm trying to mimic it, then I found when I would go sing, I had things to draw from. I had little tricks and things that I didn't realize I was incorporating into my own sound. So I feel like that's a major thing that can be done to just develop the vocabulary.
Kind of keep it in your vocal tickle trunk or
yeah,
something,
like
you know?
that, yeah.
And I think, would you say that that's helped you in your writing process, where to kind of take direction for a certain song, or you know, I kind of want to feel like this, so I might use these little tricks that I've learned. Yeah.
Or you start to identify things within songs or within an artist that you like. You know, when you get into the practice of like mimicking things to develop your vocabulary, you can listen to something and you can say, I see why I like this song, or I see why I resonate with this, and I want to incorporate that into my music that I'm making. What would you say to anyone who's been trying to do this, trying to find that style, and maybe they're having a difficult time, or maybe it's the consistency that's been a little frustrating? What would you say to those people? I would say perform and then listen to what people say. Yeah. And then I would also say, like, look at the music you like and try and find the common threads. Like, why do you like it? Is it very vocal heavy? Do they have lots of background vocals? How are the songs treated in post-production? You know, because sometimes our sound is not actually us. Sometimes it's like what they do in post-production. Like, what are they doing to it? Are the vocals very dry or wet, or do they have like, how are they edited? What, you know, these types of things. Why do you like these songs? Is it just what the person's singing about? Is it how they're singing it? Is it like super emotionally expressive? Is it not? Because that's cool too. Like, like what what are some of the characteristics of the songs you love? And then just write them down and do them. Yeah.
Nice. I like that. You were saying that to those people to perform. I think for a lot of emerging artists, I would say on the local scene, is finding spaces to perform is a little bit difficult, especially now. And so what would you recommend? Is it like posting covers on Instagram or TikTok and doing those certain things and just trying to get that out there and see what feedback they get from those mediums? Yeah. Have you like tried any of those things, or do you think that it's just, you know, something good for people to try? If you can't perform, that's probably a good way to get out there.
Yeah, I would say now with the modifications we've had to make, social media is good. Posting covers and things like that to get the feedback, but feedback is really good. I would say that's my, like, the main way that I really identified who I want to say who I am, but like what my sound offers to the listener. Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever have any mentors or vocal coaches as you were kind of growing in this craft?
Yeah, I have several mentors. Aaron Costello was my vocal coach when I went to school. Yeah, and also still is a mentor to me. Working with Asia New Groove was big for me, and I feel like that's where I developed a lot of my comfort on stage. And singing backgrounds is no joke. It's no joke. Like, you would think otherwise, but it is no joke. Like, it will stretch you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it helped me to realize that listening is equally as important as like singing. You know, when you're singing, to listen to everything that's happening around you, right? So I would say being in that group and with Asia, watching her perform and like being given that platform to develop the comfort was huge for me. Yeah.
I like that.
Just two of several, many people. Yeah.
That's amazing. I think, you know, singing background is a humbling process, but it can really refine you as an artist, to kind of take on the style that somebody wants, you know, the dances that you're doing, the types of sounds that you're making, and the personality that you're showing people on stage can really help you, because sometimes, you know, it's out of your comfort zone. You know, if you're a singer who's a little bit more, you know, it's more somber, laid back, more vibes, but then you're singing background for this high energy band, it's kind of like, oh gosh, you know?
That's what it felt like.
Right? So you have to really perform, but it kind of stretches you, right? And I feel like there's a lot of room for growth in those areas. How did you get into background singing? Was it hard to kind of find those gigs, or did it?
No, like singing with Asia New Groove was actually my first professional music gig. It was like the first time I was like, oh, like I can do this for money? Like I can actually do I can actually do this for real? Like, it wasn't hard, because I remember I had gone into school. I was in school at the time, and yeah, I remember Asia just called me. She got my number from someone, and I guess they were short a singer, and she's like, would you like to sing with us? And I said, okay. That's how it went. So it wasn't difficult. I'd say I'm really blessed because of that. It was tough to like learn all the songs and learn the backups and everything. Yeah, it wasn't like a breeze, but it wasn't tough to get into it. I feel like when something's meant to happen, it just does. Yeah.
Nice. I think that speaks to the community, right? Because we're all connected to the township, and you kind of know we have this beautiful thing in our community where kind of like the church and even our families have been like a natural incubation for vocalists, and so everyone knows whether or not you can sing, right? And if you're going to pursue it and go get the education and go and really train, then people are going to keep you in mind. And so that I think that's something beautiful that really speaks to our community. Shout out to Asian New Groove.
Yeah, very grateful.
And Aaron Costello.
Yeah.
So kind of talking about stage and performing, I want to talk about, taking what you've created in the studio and putting that on stage and creating an experience. What has that process been like? What have been the challenges that you've faced in doing that?
Ooh, challenges. It is a challenge because singing in the studio and live are two totally different things. So it's a challenge to, it's just important to make sure you can actually sing it. It's tough though, because like in the studio, you want to get super creative and nothing's wrong with that, but it's just like, I found a couple times I sang in the studio and then singing live, it was like, whoa, my voice doesn't want to do this, right? Because like you're stationary in the studio, you're just sitting there and you're like able to cut and paste and you can say, okay, this part I want to like sing this way and you do it, but like actually singing it top to bottom can be tough. So it's good to understand your vocal range and like, that's a challenge. Also with instrumentation, with like the, like for me, I like to perform with live instruments, but then like say, for instance, it's a song that I recorded with, electronically. Sometimes translating that can be difficult, but like, I've been really blessed to work with really talented musicians that are able to just like knock it out of the park. And also, I would say don't be afraid for your live performance to sound a little bit different than the recording. That's okay too. Yeah.
I think there's a creative process in all of it, for sure. And I think that what I love about live performance, as much as I love listening to music in my headphones, live performance is such a beautiful experience because what I've noticed is that you get to see another side of the artist, and even if they do sound exactly the same as they did on their album, you're there and it's kind of like you're in the studio with them almost. And I think it stretches the artist to the point of seeking another type of creativity. I think, and you can tell me if you agree or not, but I feel like it's different to put what's on your mind into the studio versus what's on your mind onto a stage, because there's just different factors and there's a different experience there.
It's a different experience because you have an audience that you're interacting with, right? A big part of art is like the job that the listener or the viewer does. They have a job. And that's like giving feedback, whether it's energetic or whether it's like actually giving you feedback, speaking to you or whatever. But it's like on stage, you have humans to talk to. So it's totally different. I prefer stage, personally. Yeah.
Nice. I like that. I prefer watching the stage.
I prefer stage over anything,
I think it makes a lot of room for unique experiences, for sure. I know in concert experiences that I've had, like for an example, I got to see Erykah Badu in 2018, and I was like,
wow.
I literally was like, if I die right now,
Yeah,
it's okay.
I know, right?
I was like,
Girl.
I'm like living here in this moment. It was wild, right? And I think, I didn't actually believe that she was going to, like, I don't know, show up or whatever.
She's like, this can't be real.
I
She's not gonna come.
was like, this is
She's
not
not
real.
gonna come.
There was like this like white blanket with just an orange moon on it, which is my favorite Erykah song. So I was already like out of my mind, and I'm like, okay, it's whatever. But then she just created this wild experience. There's like a light behind and you see her shadow through the blanket, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's her shadow. Like, who am I? Right? And then the whole thing falls down and she just like starts doing her thing, right? And I'm like, whoa, like I'm really here. And to think about the creative process that went behind that, you're really thinking about the people and like, okay, how can I really give life to this song or to this set list for the people that are going to be there? Because you're also thinking about what you want to receive back, right? So I think it's a really what's the word? I can't even find it. But it's such a nice process. I feel like it's a really caring process.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can relate to that feeling
Mm-hmm.
of, because I went to see Jill Scott.
Oh my gosh,
I
I would have
just
fell over.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I drove all by myself to Philly. I needed to. I was like, you know
In
what?
Philly, she's from Philly.
Yeah.
So you
Jilly
know that
from
was
Philly.
a real good show. She put her heart on the line for that
And
one.
same thing. I was like, I was emotional. I was like, oh my God, did I really just see this woman?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to think, you know, that's someone that people say like you sound like. So I feel like was there anything that you took away from that performance that you were like, you know, I want to incorporate this myself, or like could you see yourself like in a similar light to like the size of her performance and the way she kind of carried it out?
Oh, maybe. I was just so in the moment.
You probably overwhelmed.
I don't know. I don't
like
know.
that.
Yeah, like I don't even know.
Yeah, honestly.
It was just so
Fair.
good. Like it was just so magical.
Yeah, I hope Jill gets to see this. Please tag Jill Scott and Erica Badu so they know your biggest fans are on the brown couch. That's amazing. So I would say what are some tips or some things that you always keep in mind when you are preparing for a performance, be it background or maybe it's your own performance? What are some things that help you kind of take what you did in the studio and try to best convey that on stage?
I don't usually think about if I'm conveying what I did in the studio on the stage.
Okay.
Maybe I should, but I don't usually think about that. It's been so long since I performed.
Yeah.
I usually tell myself, other people do this, I can do this, because I'm usually so nervous, right? So that's my mantra, like, other people do this, I can do this, right?
I'm no different.
Yeah, I can do this. You know, they ain't no better than me, I can do this. I tell myself that because, like,
sometimes you gotta talk to yourself.
that's usually the main thing I tell myself. And that's usually it. And then I try to, like when I'm on stage, I try to have a good experience, like give myself an experience that people can observe. Because I find when I start to think too much about hoping they like it, it just like throws it off.
Right. And I
You
mean,
know?
if they didn't like it, they wouldn't come.
They wouldn't come. Yeah, they wouldn't be there.
Yeah, so you don't even have to debate about that, you know?
But that's a thing. I try and like, I engage the audience, but I don't like to put that pressure on myself to like, to be liked or something. You know what I mean?
No, I understand what you're saying. Because it's about, you know, you're sharing your art with people, and, you know, you would hope that the people that show up are people who are already enjoying it or have enjoyed it before. They want to know more about it, right? So you don't want to overwhelm yourself by thinking about those things.
Yeah.
You know?
I also try to take myself as is to the stage. Like, say I didn't have such a great day, or I'm feeling a bit emotional that day, or whatever. I try to like be okay with that, and like let things fluctuate throughout the performance. Because I've started performances not feeling so great, and then slowly, you know. But it's like this self-acceptance of this is how I am, this is how my day was, whatever, right? Like these people are here to see me, and this is me, right?
Yeah.
You know? And it depends on the setting too. But I love an intimate setting where I can actually talk, where I can say like, yeah, my day wasn't the best.
Yeah, and,
right?
and then you still go out there and you still do it, and it probably makes you feel better. I was talking to someone about the Escape and SWB, their verses that was like a month or so ago, and I can't remember which member of SWV, but they had just like witnessed like this traumatic thing in the hotel, like right before the performance. And if you watched it, or if you go back and watch after this, like to see how they just slayed the entire versus battle, like I was like, wow, you know, she went there knowing how she felt, but the music and performing really carried her throughout that experience, right? And it uplifted her. And at the end of it, like, she was super joyful. I wouldn't have known that was the experience she had going into the versus battle, but that's what was going on. And so, you know, being honest and saying, you know, I'm not having the greatest day, but I'm still gonna sing. It uplifts you, and it kind of helps you get through, because music is kind of like medicine. It is. That's very like cliche, but it's true.
It is, but it is.
And so I feel like
scientifically too. It really is.
Yeah.
Like, scientifically, music is medicine.
Well, that's why we have music therapy, right?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, don't let, and I feel like this goes for anything. If you let your feelings get the best of you, you know, you can miss out on so many opportunities, right? And so an opportunity to share and be creative, I think that's really important to not let your feelings determine what you do with that possibility, but you go ahead and do it anyway. Like, why would you practice and write to just, you know, not do that one day just because you're not feeling it?
And it just depends. Like, again, it depends on the setting, the vibe of the show or whatever, but it's like, yeah, you have a bad day, you're not in the best mood. You don't have to necessarily shake it off and, okay, I'm good, and get up.
You don't have to fake it.
You don't have to fake it. Like, you can say, this is how I feel right now.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna go do it as is.
Yeah.
And then let it, you know,
let it ride.
Let it ride.
Because I think also we forget sometimes that artists and performers, like, they're human beings.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that I've learned going to see live performances. Like, you know, these are real people, and they have everyday lives, and they encounter certain things, and that's part of the reason why you relate to the music that people create, because they're sharing from their experiences, and you're really, you know, becoming connected to their humanity, right? And so I think as a listener and as an audience member, to act as if that's not part of the equation is almost selfish in a sense. It's like, hey, you know, this is something that they do because they love to do it, but also, you know, things could be tough right now. But
and it's like, imagine, like, writing a song about a situation that you're going through, and then maybe something happens to trigger it right before you have to go sing it. Like, it's all that stuff happens. People don't really realize.
And I think that's part of the experience of, like you were saying, that you're still learning. And I think that, you know, discovering your sound is a process that never really stops, because things can change over time. You know, there's lots of artists who've changed their sound over time. And so I think that's related to what they do experience, and taking into account their feelings and what's going on in their life also, right? And just trying new things. You know, people like to reinvent themselves, and I think that music is a way that people do that with ease. It's harmless in a way. So I think that's really interesting. When you're talking about, you know, accepting yourself, how you are that day, and you go and perform, does that, can that disrupt, you know, the time you take to practice stage presence? Do you practice your stage presence, or do you just kind of go up there and do the thing? What is that like?
I do practice my stage presence.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Talk to myself.
Yeah. That probably feels like a goofy process. Does it feel like
amazing? I love doing it. Yeah.
I feel like some people might think,
I
like,
talk to myself so much.
Yeah.
Or to my imaginary audience a lot. And
I think too, what is probably helpful is YouTube. There's live performances you can watch, and you can probably just almost impersonate. Like, you hear the crowd and everything. It probably feels real. That's interesting.
I talk. I will, like, just chat. Talk to myself.
Hi everyone, I'm Kwento.
Yeah, you know, how's everyone doing tonight? Hello. Yeah. No, I don't go on like that. But, like, really, if you want to create an experience, if you want to tell stories, you want to, like, you have to practice that, right? It's really just communication. And yeah, when it comes to stage presence, a lot of it is acting as well. Like, there's ways, physical ways to communicate certain things, to communicate comfort. Like if you're on stage and your physical body looks uncomfortable, the audience will be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So there's ways to like.
I just had an image when you said that in my mind.
But there's
It's
ways
true.
to be like, okay, I'm nervous as all hell, but like I know what it looks like to look comfortable, and so like to practice looking like you're comfortable even when you're not. Like those are things.
And it's interesting to see people come in and out of that. I think
You can feel it as an audience member, right?
oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I watched a Tiny Desk concert, and I won't say who the artist
Okay.
was, but I feel like if you watched it, you would know. But they were super nervous, and they had like, something with them for comfort.
Okay.
And like you could tell that they were nervous because they were like hunched over and stuff. But as soon as they started singing, it was like all the anxiety was gone. But then the song was over and they were back, and I was like, I feel like I'm like
But as a
moving in and
listener,
out of it with
yeah,
you.
like
I was
as an audience member, you're just like, you're like,
I'm like, are you okay? Like,
are we okay?
and they're
Like,
singing like, okay, this is fine. We're
Okay.
like vibing, we're chilling. And then they were back, and I was like, are you not like,
Yes, I'm
like,
telling
do
ya.
you need a fan? Do you need like, do you
I'm
need a
telling
candy?
ya.
But it's, that speaks to, that's also stage presence. I feel like now we're kind of dismantling this idea of, I don't know what it means to perform.
yeah.
And people are just kind of taking the authentic approach, and it's being received well.
I do love
Yeah.
that. It's just that,
It relieves a lot of pressure, I would
yes,
say.
it's like being okay with, like what I was saying, if I'm feeling a bit sad and I come on stage and I'm like, yeah, like my day was a little, so I'm just gonna get into it. Like
Yeah.
me being comfortable with that is the comfort.
And
Like, you
even
know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, so if I was really anxious and I was just comfortable with the fact that I'm anxious, I'm allowed to be, it like gives the audience a comfort as well,
Yeah.
right?
And I think too, like when people practice, I feel like there's some things that people do, like things that their body does, actions and movements, right? And I remember another Tiny Desk I was watching, and this person was singing, and it was like they were seeing something we couldn't see, and they were like reaching towards it, but like that was the mindset that they were in when they created the song, and they were sharing that experience with everyone that was watching, right? And I think it was so nice because it really helped me think about this idea of, why do we have such a refined idea of what people should do, like when they're performing? Does it always have to be uniform all the time? Does it always have
No,
to
definitely not.
look a certain way? And when people practice music, I know like growing up in church, the way people would sing, and there's lots of hand movements, and like you're just really involved. It's a full body experience. And I remember one time singing in the car with my cousins, and we were just like going in at it, and someone in the car was like, you're always like moving your hands like when you're singing or whatever. But I'm like, if I tried to not move my hands when I was singing, I feel like I'd be so focused on that I wouldn't be singing. Like it's like it just happens. It helps me find the note, and I feel like people do those things and they convey it in a performance. I see a lot of background vocalists doing that, which I think is amazing. And so I like that.
It's good I feel like it's good to just like be authentic when you're on stage. It's also good to watch yourself and review and say, because I have some habits that like I'll watch a video and I'm like, oh, that might be a little distracting, or that might be a little, and then I'll work on just refining certain things. And I mean, it's not necessary, it's just what
Now, I kind of want to talk about, I don't want to talk about COVID, but the impact it has had when it's come to your performance. There was a long period of time where no one was really performing. And if they were, it was like in a living room, going on live, which is
sitting on my bed
different. You kind of, that's where you practice. It's not where you perform. And so how has COVID impacted your stage presence or your performance, and what kind of helped you become comfortable going back to the stage?
I haven't really been back to the stage yet. I sang backgrounds with New Groove again, which was so nostalgic.
Yeah.
So good.
You guys were all having So much fun.
But that was my first time.
Yeah.
Since.
Wow.
Yeah, so I haven't been back to a stage.
Okay, so you're still kind of working through that.
But it's affected. I don't like it. I don't like virtual performances as much. I'm not like super against it because there are benefits to it. And I feel like it was something that I wasn't really comfortable doing before. So like, I'm glad that I had to do it because now I feel like I can. So it was good, but it's like, I really don't enjoy it in terms of like me performing and knowing that people are watching and like typing, and it's not as,
you can't really engage.
Yeah, I can't really engage, but I did one where I did like a pre-recorded set, and I felt like that was easier.
Well, because you can watch it and see.
I can watch it with people.
Yeah.
And you know, so
you can interact with them also.
Yeah, so I think that was different. I didn't mind that so much, but I still like live performance over anything. Like, come on.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
I think the good thing that was about virtual performances is there's people that you never knew if you could get a chance to see.
The reach.
You could see them, right? And so that was really beautiful. And some people really went all out when it came to virtual performances. I had seen, who did I see? It was like a Lucky Day performance thing, and I was like, you know, I never thought I'd be able to ever actually see Lucky Day, but it was a really cool experience, like in his studio, just doing his thing, and so people are able to create something really beautiful with a virtual performance.
I love that aspect of it, and I also love how I was able to tell some of my friends who live abroad that I have a show, and then they were able to watch it. So like, I love that aspect of it, but in terms of how I feel, it was like,
you kind of miss that aspect of it. You know what, Erykah Badu also did a very good job with virtual performances. Like, she hopped on it. I was like, did you know that COVID was coming? Because she executed that.
She was ready. She
so
had the
well.
equipment. Like,
she had the
ready.
equipment. She had the setup. I was like, there's like 12 cameras in your house.
Like you're way too ready for this.
Yeah,
I'm
right?
suspicious.
I was like, this is
I'm
not
suspicious.
Okay. You know, but it was so cool with like the Q&As and all these sorts of things. And it was, what I liked was how like affordable it was. She made her own platform. Definitely, I would say a pioneer in the virtual performance realm. No one can tell me anything because she was the first person I saw when COVID first hit that was like, I'm doing
one
a virtual
immediately.
And it was like $1. $1, and there was like millions of people on there. I'm like, and there was, she did Q&As. Which song should I do next? You could choose. Like,
she was on it.
She meant it. Shout out to Erykah again.
She meant it.
You know, like, so I think if you want to look at examples, if anyone wants to look at examples, you know, try and tap into those virtual performances of your favorite artist. And see what they're doing and see what you can incorporate.
And I think it's an amazing thing, like if you take to that, like if you're that type of person and you take to that, run with it, because that's the direction we're going. Like for me, I felt like I had more of a struggle just because of like my personal preference.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I think I whacked the mic.
No, you're good.
Okay. But yeah, because of my personal preference, I struggled with it. But if you don't struggle with it, run with that.
Yeah.
Because it's the wave. Like,
Absolutely.
For sure. Ugh.
Telling you, COVID is stretching people.
Even
in
just
the arts
saying
world.
wave just now, like I felt it. Like it's one of those triggered waves. Like, oh, which wave are we in? Wave.
Honestly, not
Good
sure.
Lord,
just tell me when to stay inside, and I'll follow the protocols.
Woo, yeah.
Yeah,
COVID really.
Something else, but I think it's come with lots of opportunity as well. I kind of want to talk about production a little bit because. You know, one thing I hear now is people saying, you know, there's this great producer over here. We can send files digitally. Like, you can make a song with people you've never been in the studio with before now. And so I think production is something that is moving differently, and people are starting to figure out, how do I navigate production? And so I wanted to ask you, like, how many producers do you work with, or do you produce yourself?
I don't produce my music myself. I do write, and I play a couple of instruments, and so I'm able to like write a song and have the bare bones, and then have other people contribute. As far as producers that I work with currently, I would say maybe 3 or so.
Okay. And are they based here? Are they based
No.
around? Okay.
No. There's one in Zimbabwe.
Oh, wow.
2 in Toronto. D'Angelo Power, Neo Tempest. Silent No is the one in Zimbabwe. And yeah, like I would say currently.
Okay, so what has been some challenges maybe that you've had working with producers from afar, especially in Zimbabwe, you know?
Challenges.
Yeah.
Well, internet connection.
Fiber op, come on, fiber op.
Internet connection. No, on their end.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough. But
time zones are probably super difficult too.
Time zones.
Yeah.
I actually have a session after this, and it's like early for me. Okay, it's like I think there's 6 hours later.
Oh, okay.
So
it's like supper time.
Dinner time. Yeah, so it does work, but it's just like the time zone thing. But I find that because we've all been forced to be on Zoom and online and everything, like I thought it would be more of a challenge, but it's not so much because I'm a little bit more tech savvy. But I think like it is a challenge, just the feeling of wanting to be in person with them.
Yeah.
You know, like having him play guitar and I'm like hearing something I want to sing, and we'll be like, I'll say, okay, I'm going to mute myself and just play. I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to like, because when I sing there's a delay, and so there's that challenge. So like we kind of jimmied it a little, where like he'll play guitar and I'll mute myself and I'll sing and I'll record it on my phone, and then I'll send it to him, like, here's the idea, you know. But like these are just the technical things.
Yeah.
But it gets done.
Well, that's the main goal.
Yeah.
What has helped you in choosing producers to work with? Did you have to like, you know, test out like a few, or did they come to you, or was it, you know, like what was that like? Did you maybe, I know for me not that I'm a recording artist, but I'm really into like producers and what they do, and so, you know, if I hear a song I like, I'm like, who produced that song? And I go and I find them. Like, what has helped you in finding a producer and choosing a producer?
Well, Neo Tempest I was introduced to through a friend, but like I'm blessed. Like I feel like I've naturally developed good relationships. D'Angelo Power, we were friends like before he really decided to produce, you know, and he's just bomb. So like but I would say if someone's looking for a producer that, like, I think compatibility is so important, like on a friendship level. That for me, like being able to be in a studio, because like when you're writing and creating music, you're kind of, not always, not necessarily, but like sometimes this is some real personal stuff. So I feel like being comfortable with the person is so important, because like we can all evolve and we can all like develop new skills. We can all adapt to someone else's style, or we can all do that. But it's like if our personalities just don't mesh, then like what's the
studio's not gonna work, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe in another setting.
Maybe.
Like maybe if you're not doing it on your own, maybe like say you're with a label and it's like this is a reputable producer. They're like, you know, like if it's a different setting, it might be okay if you're not like besties or whatever. But I feel like if you're doing it on your own, really I personally feel like it's important to have like a good connection of some sort with the person, so that you're able to like chill and relax and make music. You know, like
I think that speaks to, I feel like us as Nova Scotians, I say this to a lot of people in the industry, that we're like really relational people. Like we take the time to get to know people and spend time, and we really care. And so relationship building is huge, I think, for our culture. But I think now, you know, culture on a major scale is kind of moving into the sense of, you know, we got to get to know people and pay attention and, you know, really build connections. And I think that's something that people are agreeing with across the board.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's something that can challenge people, but can also bring out something really great if it can actually happen. It's interesting to see like what that process is like. And, you know, I feel like you never really know what you're going into when you meet with a producer, because, you know, you could have two completely different things in mind, and you have to come together and figure out one thing.
But
so
that's a beautiful process too. Yeah. And one thing I would say, like in closing to that topic of being in the studio, don't be afraid to I found it intimidating as a singer, not knowing the technical language, how to describe things and how I wanted them or whatever, but like to just describe it however. Like don't be intimidated by like studio lingo and saying like, you could say, you know, it sounds like ting ting ting, but I want it to be like boom boom boom. You can say that. Like you can just say it however, right? Like once I realized that, I found it easier to mesh and articulate what it is that I felt about music when I stopped being hung up on like lingo and sounding professional and like they know all this stuff and I don't. Like, yeah, I don't, whatever. But I'm just gonna explain it how I do.
Yeah, there's always room and space to learn. I think that goes for music professionals in the industry across the board. Because I know for me, when I first got into the industry, I was like, hey, I don't know what that means.
You know, it's like I don't know anything.
I was like, I think you're saying this, but this term, like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
I would be in Zoom meetings, like, on Google, like,
listen,
me. I'm like,
me.
Definition of blank, blank, blank. Like,
no,
I
seriously,
didn't know, like,
that's me. I'm on Google all the time.
I didn't go to school to be in, you know, music business. I just kind of found myself there, and it stuck, and I was like, oh, so I do this now. And then I'm sitting in meetings with people, and I'm like, I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Someone made a reference to a contract once, and I was like, can I get back to you?
Could we revisit this topic?
Yeah, like I need to.
I have some place I need to be.
The internet.
Revisit always. Could we revisit this?
Yeah,
like,
Can I get back to you in 24 hours? I just need to do some research and figure out how I got here. You know, so I mean, there's always room to learn, and you know, there's new things, and it's growing, and the industry is changing, and so I think across the board, everyone's starting to become a little bit more adaptable in one way or another when it comes to the musical process. So it's interesting being on one side or the other and being like, you know what? I'm just gonna go with it and see what comes up. As we end this Jazz Lab, it's been so lovely. Is there anything else you would like to add or to tell the people who are watching?
Well, I would just like to thank you for having me, first of all. As I said in the beginning, I don't feel that I'm a master at this, but I just appreciate you wanting my contribution today.
Of course.
I would say, like, as I said in the beginning, my biggest advice when it comes to finding your sound is listening to the people who are listening to you and let them tell you what your sound is. And go from there, because they're hearing you and they'll be honest and they'll tell you. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, with that, I want to thank everyone for watching. Thank you once again to all of our sponsors for this year's Jazz Festival, our Jazzlabs. Thank you to the team. Thank you to Lighthouse Rockbound Productions, to the team at Halifax Jazz Festival. It's been a great run this summer. Really happy that we were able to have a bit of a hybrid festival this year and bring some live performance and virtual performances, which are still happening. So please take a look at those, get tickets, and get involved. We have some great local talent being showcased there. And if you would like to look back at any of these Jazz Labs, they are all going to be on our website, halifaxjazzfestival.ca. And so with that, thank you for a great run. This concludes our Jazz Labs for 2021.
Music has an incredible capacity to connect us, amplify voices that aren't always heard, and open doors to a more inclusive tomorrow. That's why we support Canadian music with a focus through the TD Ready commitment on experiences that bring people together and break down barriers even when we're apart.